Okay, so viewers are all very welcome. Members who are thinking of heading to Australia, heading to Dubai, or even coming back from either location, this is a talk, a conversation, podcast style, if you like, with Paul Minton, who's based in Sydney. He's a recruiter over there. He's Irish, he's there 10 years. And also Jeff Landers in Dubai. What we're trying to do with this conversation is to give ACA members who are planning on going to either jurisdiction as much information and arm them with as much kind of knowledge, I suppose, as a qualified chartered accountant in each place to make the best of their year there or their plans and what they need to know going over. The guys are a wealth of information, and there's an awful lot of ACAs heading over to both Dubai and Sydney and Australia at the moment. Paul's based in Sydney. I think that's right, Paul, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sydney.
great. So look, maybe to start with you, and thanks guys for joining us for this. I have a load of questions, and I'm trying to put myself into the shoes. I am a chartered accountant, but I am trying to put myself into the mindset of maybe a recently qualified ACA who is going to do the year away in Sydney or some time over in Australia. They're getting their visa, they're getting organized, they're trying to do some remote interviews to see if they can tee something up remotely. And they've got maybe friends who have headed over and gone and done that in recent years or are over there at the moment. And far off hills are greener and it looks fantastic. And why wouldn't you go and do a year in Australia? You know, it's a brilliant thing to do. You come home more mature, varied experience, all that kind of stuff. So it's brilliant for an ACA to go and do this. But what I'd love to get out of this bit of conversation is what are the really important things that they need to be careful of, be vigilant of, prepare, etc. I don't know. Maybe to start with what the landscape looks like in Sydney at the moment and then Australia generally. Like, what's your take on things at the moment, Paul?
Yeah. September is traditionally a pretty crazy time for the Irish CAs coming over. As I said to you at the start, I think you can walk around the city and look left or right and you'll find an Irish CA at the moment.
Mm.
They tend to come over obviously post the summer. So it's the market is quite saturated with Irish at this time of the year. So there's lots of big four first movers, second movers on the market. It's taking everyone a little longer than they would expect to pick up roles. So I suppose my first thing would be patient when you come over. It's not going to happen overnight. I get messages all the time from people saying, "Hey, I'm coming over in 3 months' time. Can I talk and set up interviews?" Unfortunately, the way the world has gone, there's so many on the ground that can start right away. Is you can't really do a whole pile until you arrive. You can get your CV updated, start to reach out to recruiters like myself and others. But people won't interview until you're on the ground and can start right away. They have their pick of Irish CAs who are here and can start right away. So there's not a whole pile you can do until you arrive. Then when you arrive, it's all about getting your networking, speaking to recruiters, getting your CV going. But I'm kind of saying to everyone, just be patient when you do arrive.
Mhm.
The days pre-COVID, I used to have hiring managers asking me for a list of Irish coming over, interviewing before they come over, probably post-COVID, and then landing role before they arrive. That unfortunately the economy and market isn't as strong as it was.
Mhm.
All the Irish CAs will get sorted eventually. So as I said, be patient. It's taking people anything between 4 and 8 weeks to pick up roles. So be patient. You will pick up something eventually. The market isn't overly strong, but the other side of that is that Irish Sea is a great brand, and they always pick up work eventually. It's just taking a little bit longer, so it's definitely not all doom and gloom. And there's not a whole pile you can do until you arrive. But it's taking everyone a bit longer to pick up roles when they arrive in Sydney, which is quite normal for this time of year, given the kind of influx of Irish CAs coming in post the Irish summer.
It's coming into the summer now in
Yeah, we're in spring now. We're in spring now, exactly.
spring.
But
Yeah.
where it's getting very hot, for example. But obviously, what you do is obviously you do your summer at home, where you go travel. A lot of them go traveling post qualifying in May, do some
Mhm.
3 months traveling, and then arrive in September. So they're just all coming at once.
Mhm.
So it just means that there's more competition out there, taking everyone longer to pick up roles. So we're getting a lot of stressed Irish CA messages looking for
Yeah.
roles, can't find anything the first week or two. But as I said, everyone gets sorted
Yeah.
eventually. The Irish CA brand is super strong in Australia.
It is highly
Um,
regarded, isn't it? Like, I
oh
think
yeah,
that's genuine. Yeah.
it's great. Like it's honestly some of the teams we built out are made up of 80% Irish CAs. And they're well known as hard workers. You know, you come over, it's that expat mentality, you need to pay rent. Uh they know the exams are super difficult in Ireland, much harder than Australia, and
Mhm.
have a great work ethic. So the brand is honestly crazy strong here in Sydney and broader Australia too.
Message is like, be patient and kind of you'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. Be patient. Like that was if I was to like call out two big things in terms of what to tell people coming over was one, be patient. The second would be when you do arrive, use your network. So given the market isn't as strong as it was, speak to recruiters for sure, but also think about who was in your intake or your intake last year who might be able to help. I'll give you an example. A guy I know come over a family friend, he started messaging, going on LinkedIn and messaging all the Irish CAs that were hiring managers
Yeah.
about 3 weeks ago. And obviously didn't get much traction to start with, but since that, one of them has come back and he's got interviews, he's actually landed the role. So put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to network on LinkedIn and reach out to people who maybe connections or second connections,
Yeah.
because it can be about who you know as well. But equally
Yeah.
speak to recruiters, like we know what companies generally hire Irish, what companies generally sponsor candidates too. There's a portal called Seek, get it up there, and recruiters will approach you. So yeah,
Mhm.
stay patient and use your network wisely when you get over. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and send messages. You mightn't get much traction, but something might come good as well.
Brilliant, really good advice. Actually, and Stephen McGuire, my colleague, actually is on here as well. Sorry, Stephen, I should have introduced you. And because you were saying, like you were mentioning Seek actually as well, and that a lot
Yeah.
of ACAs are very conscious of that. And Stephen, you were talking to 3 or 4 members already this week that are actually heading over to Australia. So it obviously is the time of year.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's really picked up, and that's the thing is that Seek obviously in Ireland isn't hugely well known, so it's something we are having to have discussions with. I would, my recommendation when everyone is to join in, like sign up, get your CV up, and start processing it. Paul, just to kind of touch on one of the things you said, about the expat kind of mentality and you have to pay your rent and everything. Just on that factor, obviously rent housing is a big issue here in Ireland. What is the accommodation availability like in Sydney in particular?
Yeah.
I think my question's more phrased of you're saying it's going to take a little longer than expected. So kind of how much like rent are people going to have to cover before they find something, for example? Like what's the kind of rental market like at the moment?
Yeah, yeah, similar to the job market, they all seem to come at once and they all want to stay in the same place. So in Sydney, so we're all living in decent suburbs, Coogee, Randwick, which doesn't help. It takes again taking people a bit long. Like if you came in June or July, you'd have a place to stay within a week or two. Again, I've spoke to RCAs today or looking, it's taken them 4 or 5 weeks to land accommodation. Again, you will pick up accommodation. Everyone gets sorted, and then at the end of the day, you have like they ask for proof that you are an accountant, and so they know you will have income coming in. And rent's a real mixed bag. Like it's you'd be paying 400 or 500 bucks a week, so you would. AUD now, that's not euro. For a decent place to stay. But you do spend the first couple of weeks going from house view into house view, and you arrive. There's 30 or 40 Irish there looking for it. And it just, again, takes a bit of time. It does get easier then when you get a job because obviously you can show you have income coming in. But having the qualified Irish CA on your application actually helps massively because they're not
mm,
worried about you picking up a job and having money coming in. So the rent, like I wouldn't say the rental market is as bad as Dublin because there's more of it. And again, most people tend to go in with 2 or 3 people and get an apartment between them.
yeah.
So yeah, average I'd say is anything between 3 and 6 weeks to pick up a place. Again, we're all living in the same area, which doesn't help. But again, very similar to the job hunt. Everyone gets set up with accommodation. In the end, it just takes a bit of a slog, which is all part of the experience and moving to another country as well.
Are they all piling into Macquarie Bank still, or is that kind of?
No, not at all, actually. Actually, I just spoke to an Irish guy today who got a role at Macquarie Bank and they were offering him sponsorship off the bat. He was supposed to interview for us, which is a good sign in the market because the interesting you say that financial services has probably been the hardest hit industry in Sydney over the last 2 years.
Right.
Um, all the banks have been letting people go now. It is definitely more weighted towards the senior end in terms of redundancies, but that just means there's a follow through as well, and teams aren't growing. There hasn't been a whole pile of growth in financial services over the last 2 years. So it's actually been much quieter for us in the FS space, which traditionally has been super strong for the Irish. Cliff, for
Yeah.
example, who was supposed to be here, used to do lots of work with Macquarie Bank and Westpac and these likes.
Mm.
So the FS space hasn't been great. Like where we're actually getting more traction is in some other industries, for example, healthcare and renewable energy, where our teams are growing there, and they have a bit more money to spend, particularly given if you want to sponsor an Irish person, it does cost there's a bit of cost associated with that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was actually going to ask then, like, what are the growth sectors? Like, if you were boxing clever as an ACA and you were like, right, I know
Yeah.
it's going to take me a little bit of time to get a role here, but like, let's zone in on where I'm going to get the best bite of the market. What would that be?
You know what? It's kind of hard to frame it that way at the junior levels because it doesn't really work like that. Like
Right.
you kind of need to spread your wings wide. I always bucket it into FS and non-FS, so financial
Mm.
services and non-financial services. And non-financial services could be healthcare, energy, FMCG. I wouldn't focus on a certain industry, because you just don't know where the role will come, and people don't care
Don't go running
much
for
as
mining like it's
no,
no.
no,
Yeah,
no, no,
okay.
no. And but people don't care as much about specific industry experience at the junior levels. It's more important as you get to the senior end. So I would just focus on probably likely where you trained up, like what kind of clients you're working with in professional services, and was it FS, non-FS, and then focus on that. And there will be recruiters who focus on FS and non-FS.
Hmm.
Given the FS market has been quite poor, to have everyone's kind of diversified to the non-FS space as well.
Mm.
So I wouldn't be too picky on industry. In your first role, I would be, yeah, more focused on landing a role where you think you'll actually gain good Australian experience in a business where the culture is good, and it's a good spot to land in your first gig in a new country.
Right. And that, like, we before we started here, we were mentioning Perth, Melbourne, and Sydney and stuff. And I suppose Sydney's probably the main hub. Like,
Yeah.
would you advise going to Sydney or looking at the other jurisdictions, which we were saying they're quite different and different dynamics within the market there? Um, like, should they consider going to Sydney as opposed to Perth or Melbourne or vice versa?
But look, I'm obviously very, very biased that Sydney is the best spot to be,
Mm,
lifestyle wise, jobs wise. Like, there's just more opportunities in Sydney,
mm,
and that's I suppose a generic fact, I would say.
yeah,
Melbourne, the market I know, I speak to people, hasn't been that strong either. It's been a bit quiet in the accounting space for sure. But you will again, like, it's Melbourne is again similar to Sydney, a very big city. Similar, so is like Perth as well. You'll get a job no matter where you go. Perth has a lot of the mining type roles for sure. And they take on quite a few Irish from what I believe, but Sydney definitely has the most opportunities. There's just bigger businesses, bigger industries,
yeah,
a bigger city, bigger economy. So like
yeah.
the most likely place you will pick up a job will be Sydney, but again, given where the Irish brand is at in Australia, no matter where you go, you
Mm.
will pick up a role eventually.
Yeah, good, good. So just be patient. And like to see, like again, look at like I know the Irish market really well. I know all the nuances and like the CV orientation and everything and the whole approach. Like two things. Is there a way of dealing with and building a relationship with recruiters that's a little different in Sydney? And is there a CV template or orientation that they should be vigilant of as well? Like coming at the getting of the job, is it a little bit different in Sydney? I don't know whether you saw how that works in Ireland 10 years ago.
Yeah, probably not. But I would say in the CV point, it's probably not a huge difference at that level because you are quite junior in your experience. One thing I would say is, like, a lot of times people come over and just list clients that don't really mean anything to people in
Mm,
Australia. So make sure you're listing clients and giving a bit of a blurb or context in terms of who these clients are. It could be their revenue or it could be their market cap, for example. It kind of brings to life the actual scale of clients you've worked with.
yeah.
But the templates are all very similar. Like, there's a company over here called Canva, that a lot of people do their CVs on. That's quite helpful. And then the other thing is, like, trying to stand out from the crowd can be quite difficult if you're, let's say, for example, professional service first mover. They all have have all very similar experience. What I do say is if you've done anything, like for example, when I was in KPMG, I did a couple of projects in transaction services. That sort of stuff helps pulling you out of the rest of the crowd. If there's anything at all, even if it's a 3 week, 6 week, 6 month contract that you've done, sorry, project that you've done, get that on the CV, because it can help you, yeah, like actually stand out from the rest of the crowd. And then outside that, I would say the CVs are fairly similar. No nuances to the Australian market other than making sure you are, bringing to light like what kind of clients you worked with, what you've actually done. On the working recruiter side, look, honestly, 2 years ago, I would have said pick, one or two or three that you work with, and you should be fine. Given where the market is at, like we all have, I'm not going to go around saying I have the best relationships in Sydney and have all the jobs. I don't. Everyone has different relationships, and when I speak to different Irish, they seem to be picking up jobs with recruiters I've never heard of. So I would honestly spread and it may be a bit painful speaking to recruiters all day when you get over because we can be annoying. But I would actually, my advice now would be to actually spread your network quite wide. And once you get your profile on Seek, recruiters will actually come to you because that's where they look for candidates. So no real different approach. Again, spread the network wide. Use your network. Like for example, there's a couple of us recruiters in the Irish CA Sydney committee. Reach out to us. We can kind of point you in the right direction in terms of who you might be speaking to. So I wouldn't say massively different to Ireland either. Again, we're all doing we're offering a similar service across the world as recruiters. Spread your network wide. Definitely speak to any of the Irish CAs that have turned into working in the recruitment space, because there is quite a few. They're definitely helpful. And just get yourself out there. Again, Seek, LinkedIn, just make sure you're using your network widely. So again, not a huge difference, I would say, Dave.
And network-wise, you mentioned there the Irish CA Sydney committee. Like that's not part of CA Australia, like or
it is
that something
yeah.
that members can tap into?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a committee of about 8 or 9 Irish CAs who sit on what you call it, like just a committee essentially. And we're all relatively senior over here. Myself and Cliff's another recruiter, for example, and a few others. We organize events every quarter. For example, we do a big boat party in November, and it's a Christmas boat party. It's sold out within a week or so. It's crazy.
What's
And
the
like
boat party?
Boat party, yeah, out in the
Oh, boat.
the harbor.
Oh, sorry.
Boat party, yeah, boat party.
You're picking up the Aussie accent.
I'm definitely not. I would hope not anyway. But yeah, so we do a boat party. Then we do like a Christmas in July. In July, we did drinks for kind of some, and it's a good mix. Like what you'll see there is people who have been out here 40 years are there, and people who are fresh off the boat, CA. So it's very good for the network perspective. So I would say keep an eye on that, because there are events 3 to 4 times a year. Like for example, the President come over is a big event, and they're very good. Like they're well funded. There's lots of people there. There's no shortage of demand. So definitely tap into that. And get on the newsletter. The newsletter kind of gives you a bit of a rundown in terms of what events are on. But we've definitely heard stories of these events leading to opportunities down the line with someone you've met at them.
Good stuff. I'm just looking at my notes here, and I kind of have a piece on LinkedIn. Like, does Seek supersede LinkedIn really in Sydney? Like in Ireland, LinkedIn is huge, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think LinkedIn is still, like, for me personally, like I kind of do a bit more of the senior end now, so it's more relevant. But I use LinkedIn for headhunting for sure. Seek is just a great one because it allows recruiters come to you. So it just it's very similar to Indeed in Ireland. I think Indeed is a bit bigger in Ireland so get it up there. You don't have to do anything, and people will come to you, and then get you open to work on LinkedIn and start reaching out to recruiters as well. So I would use both.
Right. Good stuff.
That would be my take anyway, yeah.
Okay, and actually, just last piece maybe then, unless you have a couple of other points, but practice is something. So, like for me, the whole market sphere splits into financial services, industry, and practice. And you've commented on financial services being a little kind of mix at the moment. Industry, big spotlight. Practice, like, I mean, I think you mentioned, were you KPMG?
So I was KPMG, yeah.
Like,
KPMG, yeah.
what about coming out of a big four and kind of going, right, well, maybe I hedge my bets and I look at joining the big four, a top 10 in
Yeah,
Sydney as an option, or I know a lot of ACAs want to avoid that and they'd like to get some
yeah.
first experience out in the industry and stuff. But is that something to look at?
Look, it's definitely an option. It depends how much how much you love or hate audit or whatever you're doing in the Big Four. That's probably the reality of it. It definitely happens. Like, there's a partner, IRCA, who's head of audit in KPMG called Caoimhe Tui, for example. She takes on quite a few Irish every year. You will pick up a job with them, no problem at all. You'll also pick up a job with smaller firms. There's lots of mid-tier and even smaller firms over here that would love to have Irish on their books. They'll be very easy jobs to get. But just the reality is that 90% of people want to go into commercial and go into industry. So
Mm.
that's definitely an option. I actually met a girl I placed in a contract role in the bus this morning, and she was telling me that has an interview with a practice. And I said, look, why not take a couple of months contract, 2, 3 months contract with them, and look in parallel. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be afraid. Like, people know when you come over, you're on the visa whereby you're going to contract in the first instance anyway. So it won't
Mhm.
look unfavorably whatsoever to get a bit of Australian experience. So that option is always there. I would say don't rule it out.
Mhm.
Because it may be an option for you to do, even if you don't want to do it long term, is to do a 3 month or 6 month contract in practice, get some Australian experience under your belt, and then move into industry. But equally, you might be someone that loves the practice side of things, and you definitely won't have a shortage of opportunities there because they are always hiring. They can't find people quick enough.
Yeah.
And the Irish are well obviously liked in that space as well.
Yeah, like, and it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably a little different in a large practice in Sydney, in that, like, it's quite diverse. I would have thought, like, in
Yeah,
Ireland, you're very not siloed, but I mean, there are particular remits and audit and kind of pieces of work. Whereas in my impression, rightly or wrongly, is in Sydney, you'll actually get thrown into lots of different stuff.
yeah, you can do for sure. Like, and you probably even more so if you looked at the mid-tier firms.
Mm,
The mid-tier firms, you could be out like, doing tax compliance. You could be doing financial accountant internally, like outsource CFO kind of going to work as well,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
actually very relevant because people like to see that work because it means you've actually seen what works in the business.
yeah.
So yeah, you definitely get a bit of a breadth experience. Some of the audit practices over here are quite like Big Four audit. Like, you might be very specific to audit and FS, for example. But some of I would say the mid-tier firms, you tend to get a bit of broad experience. Now I would say just you get less than you would in industry salary wise. So the salaries are quite a bit lower in industry. So
Mm,
you probably come over with an expectation in mind that you won't actually be getting in industry. It's definitely on the low side in practice.
good point.
And
I'm sorry,
Paul,
Stephen, go ahead.
sorry, just quick question on that you just mentioned. From the visa perspective, is
Yeah.
there a kind of minimum contract length you should be aiming for, or that our members should be aiming for? And is there kind of a ballpark salary to meet the visa requirements, or even to kind of have your visa easier to sponsor, for example? Is there
Yeah.
any kind of
Yeah.
guidelines on that?
I suppose just to give a high level overview on the visa situation, because it can be quite complicated and hard to understand from overseas. The visa you get coming over is the 417 working holiday visa. That gives you 1 year to work. But there are stipulations in it whereby you can only work with one business 6 months for 6 months, and then you need to either get sponsored or move to another business. Now, there's lots of ways around that, if I'm being honest, and it's pretty easy to get around it. But the majority of businesses will bring you in on a 6 month contract or a 3 month contract. It's essentially testing the waters on for both ends. So you get to figure out whether that's a good fit for you moving to a different country, and then they get to see whether it's a good fit for them, and then they'll maybe decide to sponsor you post this. You don't hear too often you're getting sponsored off the bat. um if you do get sponsored, and the way to get sponsored is go in there and just smash the lights out. I tell everyone, make yourself indispensable, because there is a cost associated with the visa. It's about 15 grand AUD for a company to sponsor. There is a minimum requirement when it comes to salary, Stephen, but you wouldn't have any issues whatsoever with that, because it's probably 70 or 80 grand. Whereas if you go into industry or an in-house finance team function, like for example, a professional service first mover, you'd be getting anything between 100K and 110 base plus super, which is the pension over there. And then if you're a second mover, for example, with 2 years post qualified working in-house, you'd be looking at 120 plus super. So they're the kind of salaries you'd be looking at if you're making your first move into commercial, and getting sponsored. It might sound like it's difficult to do, but it's not, because they're so used to sponsoring Irish over here.
Mm.
There's actually not that many Australian CAs, to be honest, yes. So they need the Irish CAs. And it's just a case of getting in, having that conversation up front with whoever, whatever business you're going into is sponsorship possible? They'll give you a yes or no. If it is, that's great. You go in then and you do a good job, and hopefully they'll look to sponsor you post to 6 months. But that is a good point. Like, there is a rule that you can't work past the 6 months of one business, so they'll need to make a decision either way if they want to keep you as you get to the 6 month, the end of the 6 months.
Very good. That's great. The problem is they all come home looking for similar salaries when they get back to Ireland.
Well, I tell you what, I was in Dublin in May, and it's not far off in terms of what it's costing.
No,
What
it is.
well,
It's inflationary.
it's kind of
Yeah, but
expensive,
that's phenomenal.
crazy.
Maybe final question is, what are we forgetting to talk about here, Paul? Is there anything that, like, just reviewing that you think is an important point?
Look, like, yeah, I think that, like, as we just spoke about the visa, understanding that is a big thing. I would say people are starting to get a bit worried coming over that they won't pick up a job, and it does get stressful when you get over it, particularly around the peak times. So, for example, September is a peak time because everyone's coming over post the Irish summer. January, February is a peak time because people might stay till Christmas and then make the move over. So when you come over those periods, you're coming over with everyone else. There's lots of Irish CAs on the market, and it takes a bit longer to pick up jobs, so it can be stressful. Don't be afraid, like I said, don't be afraid to pick up. I've had people pick up casual work while they went and doing looking for a job. I actually had a guy, would you believe, do an Irish CA. We had an Irish CA do an interview in the back of a ute on the building site about 3 weeks ago, because they wanted him to start the next day, and he got the job. So don't be afraid to pick up a bit of casual work if you're very worried about money in the first couple of weeks. Again, if you do the right things, stay patient, speak to recruiters, use your network, you will pick up a job. Eventually, it's just taking everyone a bit longer at the moment. The Irish CA brand is, honestly, it's of all the CA brands in Sydney, it's the strongest. People love Irish CAs, they know they're hard workers. So if you do the right thing, stay patient, you will pick up a job. But yeah, don't panic. It will come good eventually. Again, it's just taking everyone a bit longer at the moment.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic.
Don't
Good stuff.
panic, exactly. So
Great.
yeah, the
And so
thing.
that's a good message for our members who are over there at the moment, because we do hear from a few that are rattling around and they message us back going, I'm having a little trouble finding stuff. Like, can you
Yeah.
dig out? This video hopefully will help them a little bit. And we need to do probably another video for anyone coming home. We'll probably tee that one up at some stage. So, like, you've been
Yeah.
fantastic. That's really good insights. And prepare to be inundated, I'd say, Paul.
Well, we're
So
already being. Thankfully I have another Irish guy who works. He works with all the Irish, so he's been great with them, just giving them a bit of I suppose, just mindfulness that it will come good eventually.
good stuff. And you're back in Ireland every year, are you?
Yeah, back in Ireland as much as I can be. Yeah, once a year. I'm at the age now where everyone's getting married, so we're either back for a wedding in Europe and going back to Ireland en route, or just going back to Ireland in general. So back at least once a year at the moment.
Brilliant to make the connection, Paul, and that's invaluable information. So thanks so much for jumping on today. We're probably going
No
to,
problem at
like
all.
the Eurovision, we're going to switch over to Dubai now, Jeff. So thanks a million, Paul. You can stay on or jump off as suits, and
Cheers. Thanks,
enjoy the
guys.
dinner. All right, Jeff, to switch to you, and thanks. As I mentioned earlier on, for jumping on, I really appreciate it, because I think more and more ACAs are going over to Dubai these days. Obviously really attractive for obvious reasons. And I'm probably going to hit you with all the same kind of questions that I had for Paul. I'm going to try and think, because, like, obviously a really different location, jurisdiction, market, everything. And you're there a while now, are you?
Yeah, I'm coming up to 3 years now.
Okay, very
So we
good.
came, like everyone out here, we came with the 2 year plan, and the time just disappears. And
Yeah, I'm
like
sure.
everyone, most of the people I know out here came for a year, 2 years, and then you see people here for 10, 12,
The
kids,
lifestyle just catches
house,
them.
everything. Yeah.
What's your background? Like,
So I did obviously my chartered accounting, worked in audit for 3.5 years, then did a brief stint in restructuring, liquidations, and examinerships, that side of things.
Right.
And then, funny, it was my partner who's also in finance, and she got in touch with Alchemy to get a job out in Dubai. I had a call with Connor, who's the founder here, and said, I'm a finance guy, but have no interest in working in finance. Can you give me a hand? What do you recommend? Started going through everything, and suddenly, recruitment kind of spoke to me. He said he had a golf membership as well, which helped.
Oh,
So,
very good.
So,
it's a very
yeah.
glossy looking outfit. It's a super looking organization from the website. Right. So in terms of, I suppose maybe the same thing to you, as I said to Paul, like the market in Dubai, you'd imagine it's growing, but maybe just to put some color on what things are looking like out there at the moment.
Yeah, so look, it is certainly growing. The problem with Dubai and the UAE in general has always been there is more candidates than jobs. And you have people from every corner of the world trying to get out here. And if we put up a post on LinkedIn about a job, we'll get 1,000 connection requests, 600 messages, people who have absolutely no relevance for the jobs. But that makes it very difficult for the people who are relevant to stand out, because you have to go through 600, however many messages, hoping to find that one person. Irish, it's funny, a lot of things that Paul said are very relevant to Dubai as well. Irish CAs are, they stand out over here. They're sought after. But 10 years ago, there was a shortage, and they would pay for your flights, your accommodation. They'd do anything they could to get you out here. But now it's the same thing. There's people September, January, just flocking to Dubai, no jobs, ready to start. And that probably weakens the negotiating position of people. I suppose that the main challenge we face is a lot of people think they're coming to Dubai, they're going to be a millionaire after a year. The oil money, the Middle East, all of that, it's not that straightforward.
All that stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And look, there's no tax out here. It's great. And there is money to be made, but that's why people come with a 2-year plan and stay for 10 years, because the money is really year 3, year 4, year 5. UAE experience is very valuable out here. And I noticed something Paul mentioned, where industry experience isn't probably as necessary in Australia. It's very, very key out here. So if you're 3 or 4 years in construction and you're going for a job in retail, you have almost no chance.
Really?
It's because the problem is there is 100 people who have that experience in retail. Why are they picking the construction guy?
And it's not that they don't see the transferability of skill sets of a chartered accountant as much. They zone very much in on the industry experience.
Because it's nothing to do with chartered accounting. We have X number of Irish chartered accountants in each industry. And the funny thing in Dubai is everyone's always looking. If you're settled in a job, you're happy and everything, and we come to you with a little bit of a salary increase, which out here is pretty reasonable. Everyone has their head turned, because they are here for a limited amount of time. So if I can earn
a bit more movement in the market, maybe it's a bit of a whirl. Okay.
So that's why the more senior you are, the harder it is to break into this market. The hardest thing is for an Irish CFO to pack up its bags, come out here and get a job. Because we did an event 2 weeks ago where we had 30 immediately available CFOs at a breakfast. Experience ranging from 6 months in the UAE to 25 years. And they're struggling to get jobs. And they span across all industries. So it is tricky to get your foot in the door.
And why is that for that particular cohort? Why is that challenging?
It's the same for everyone. It's the supply. There is an endless amount of it's not just people who are out of work. Everyone who's in a job, you can turn their head, with the right offer. And I know in Ireland, a lot of people stay enrolled for 20 years in the same company for 20 years. It's very rare out here.
So does that mean the contract and the interim piece is much more prevalent, because there's lots of holes being left everywhere, and they need, do employers kind of go, we need to get someone for 6, 12 months to shore this up?
Yeah, so that's something that wasn't a big thing a few years ago. Now that fractional space is growing, and it's something we're doing a lot of work on, is, you know, companies that need someone for 8 hours a week, or, you know, step in for 6 months or whatever it might be. That's certainly a market that's increasing, but it's funny that contract work isn't looked upon very highly out here. People still see their CV as jumpy, even though it's a 6-month contract and you did 4 of them in a row. They say, well,
Right.
why are they only staying 6 months, you know?
Okay.
And there again, the main issue people find is because of the supply of candidates, any little thing like that,
Mm.
employers can just say, no, we'll move on because we have 10 other options.
Mhm.
So it's not, and again, this isn't fear mongering by any means. Like, again, we've placed there's only one Irish person that I've met that went home without a job. And everyone will get sorted, but it's understanding, it's like understanding your enemy. You have to figure out what
Yeah,
and
there's an
set your
acclimatization
expectations.
there, I'd say. Is there an
What's there?
acclimatization to the very different environment and kind of the ways of things are done in the market in Dubai? It just needs a little
Yeah.
bit of time to adjust to that.
Exactly. And the same thing, if you're back home, if you're in the UK, you're in Ireland, and you've a 3-month notice or a 1-month notice, and you're not handing in your notice until you get an offer, your odds of actually landing a job dip hugely, because there are people who are booking a flight and they're saying, I'm out in 2 weeks. I'll be
Yeah.
there. I'll be able to start the following Monday.
Yeah.
You know, why are they waiting 6 weeks to hire you? Another month after?
Yeah.
It's, you know,
It's not dissimilar on the reverse, actually. Like we've a lot of FCA and ACA members coming back from the Middle East and Dubai, and like that, they might get the odd remote interview, but in the reality, the way the market back is in Ireland is at the moment is they probably need to be boots on the ground again to, and in terms of the demographic, probably different to Sydney. Like, do you see a lot more FCAs, or do you see newly recent quals coming out as well? Is it more on the experienced chartered accountant side you see candidates coming over?
So I'd say the slight difference with Sydney is I feel Australia in a lot of people's heads is a year, 2 years at home.
Yeah.
Whereas people tend to come out here with that idea and get hooked a little bit more. It's very hard when you're earning tax-free money and
Yeah.
you then go home and realize what you're actually taking home. And as Paul mentioned, the cost of living isn't that much different now. So in terms of coming into the region, it's definitely, say, 70-80% newly qual. But then as time goes on, those people are then saying, right, I've done my year, I've done my 2 years, looking for the next step, looking for the next move. That's where the market really opens up. Once you've done your 1 or 2 years UAE experience, get used to the corporation tax, the VAT, dealing with locals, things like that, your job opportunities open so much more, and your salary will increase a lot more, you know.
Yeah. So like recent quals going over to Dubai, then where are they getting the kind of the opportunities?
Normally they're going in as a senior accountant in any industry.
It's industry as opposed to FS then as well, typically.
Yes. Yeah. Like, again, Paul mentioned, there's not a lot of people. I actually have a role now looking for an auditor, senior auditor, and I've gotten more no's from Irish people who don't have a job than you'd care to imagine. You know, they'd rather wait it out because they don't fancy it. So there are those roles that with regards to the Big Four specifically, there's a lot of internal transfers that go on within the Big Four. So if they have a role open, they can look at India, Pakistan, UK, Ireland, and put their feelers out. Say, does anyone want to transfer in here? And that's how a lot of people make their initial move out here. If they're in KPMG, PwC, whatever it is, they will do an internal transfer, do a year, do 2 years, whatever it is, and then move out from there. And like my sister did that, for example, in tax.
Right.
So it's more difficult to come out here and then get a role within the Big Four. And I would say what 95% of our jobs are industry based.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Good stuff.
And
Sorry.
Jeff, just on a very similar question to what I asked Paul, is that just because it's such a big conversation here and it's kind of always ongoing, what is the kind of accommodation situation in Dubai? How, like, is there, I know you mentioned before we kind of start recording that there's a specific area everyone kind of tends to live in, but is accommodation hard to come by? Does it take a lot in proportion to like your take home pay and stuff? Like what's the market like at the moment?
Yes, I'd say it's actually one of the biggest myths about Dubai is the cost of living out here.
Okay.
Um, Specifically around accommodation. So you could get, if you say if you're single coming out on your own, you could get a studio apartment in a nice area, newly built, everything like that, for about €1,000 a month. Maybe less, but around that. If you're coming out as a couple, and you can get a one bedroom for €1,500 between you for the month. And when you take into account that your salary is tax free, it's actually not too bad.
Mm.
I know certainly when I was in Dublin, I would have bitten someone's hand off of that. So, it's the same with the grocery shopping, with going out for food and drink, everything like that. When you come over as a tourist, Dubai is very expensive. When you start to learn where to go, what days to go, all that sort of stuff, it's much more manageable, and it's very easy to find the right things. But there isn't it where you work very much dictates where you live. So when you come out here on a visit visa, for example, you can't get permanent accommodation until you get an Emirates ID. And you can't get an Emirates ID until you've landed a job, get your visa. So your first month is always Airbnb. You're probably paying anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 a month. They're going to be more expensive, obviously, for Airbnb, but it's the best way of doing it because you could be 45 minutes either way for your job. So if you get something permanent or you get something long term before figuring out what part of Dubai you're working in, then you're looking at, well, I have to get a car, the public transport out here isn't really a thing. So a lot of people, if you're living in the marina, you're trying to work around the marina. If you're living in the financial district, you're trying to work around the financial district, or So it's getting the job sets the tone for everything then, because you can't buy your car, get your accommodation, do any of that without your visa, and without your Emirates ID.
And you get your visa before you go out, obviously.
So you get a visit visa coming in, and that will give you between 30, they're always changing this now. So it's between 30 and 60 days that you can be in the country on a visit visa. Once you sign an offer, get your contract signed, get employed, your company then sponsors your visa. And every company is mandatory. You sponsor or you pay for the visa of the person, of your employee, and they pay for your medical. So you can't get your journey started out here without a job. And that's why there's probably a bit more pressure when people come out here. They're here for a month. I can't get permanent accommodation. I can't do anything to get myself settled here until I get the job. So it starts becoming a bit more nervy, a bit twitchy.
Yeah.
And just that ties in kind of to another question I wanted to ask is that, because you mentioned kind of the misconception around the accommodation and the cost of living. Dubai is without a doubt one of the kind of more, there's potentially a lot of misinformation out there due to what you see. Like, on social media, it's every other celebrity is over there at the moment. Like it has this kind of, there's a view from the outside looking in on what Dubai actually is. Are there any kind of other misconceptions or things you'd like to clear up about what it is to live in Dubai from what social media says or what from people probably see online?
Yeah, so well, like for example, the only celebrity I've ever seen in 3 years is Peter Crouch, and that was
He's
great.
hard to miss. In
He's hard to
fairness, he is
miss.
very hard to miss.
Yeah. And no, there's areas out here. You can come out here and spend an extraordinary amount of money. If you're going for cocktails every Friday in the Burj Khalifa, you're going to be spending a ridiculous amount. If you learn how to live within your means, there's certain grocery stores, there's certain bars, restaurants that buy one, get one free. You know, there's an app that everyone has where there's 2,000 restaurants that's buy one main course, get one free. So you're going out paying €25 for 2 main courses, and you wouldn't get that back home. I think, yeah, social media is, as everyone knows, not the most reliable source of information. I hadn't been to Dubai even on holiday before I moved out here, and I had Tom Cruise in the desert going to the Burj Khalifa. That was my only reference point. And I also thought it'd be like Vegas, or
Yeah.
you know, it's you can live whatever lifestyle you want to live out here, and that's the beauty of
It's
it.
not like that, just to be clear.
Unfortunately, not. No.
Okay.
It's much more calm. And okay, so people think, you know, I can't. The biggest thing is probably around the alcohol, or the drinking in public, or things like this. The biggest thing I can say to everyone, if you just be respectful of the country, the culture, don't do anything stupid, which you wouldn't do in Ireland anyway, it's no different. You know,
like anywhere.
there's certain things like during Ramadan, you don't eat or drink in public because people are fasting. Disrespectful. You're not going to get arrested for it, but you just don't do it. You know, don't start cursing and shouting in a public place in a mall. Again, nothing's going to happen, but you wouldn't do it in Ireland anyway. So if you live respectfully, normally, life is good.
Yeah, great. And look, we know like there's only 3 ways to get a job in any corner of the world, like recruiters, good, warm, direct applications, and your personal network. Like, the jobs boards in that context, like, you know, we mentioned Seek from an Australian point. Like, is there something savvy on the ground in Dubai to be aware of from a jobs board perspective?
So there is one called Gulf Talent, where, again, it sounds very similar to Seek. Upload your CV, all your personal details, and that's where recruiters will reach out to you. You do nothing from that perspective. The biggest, LinkedIn is huge out here. Massive. So if you see a company posting a job on LinkedIn, majority of the time within a week, there'll be 2,000, 3,000 applicants to that job. So it's very hard to actually get hired through LinkedIn, but it will give you a good understanding of what companies are there. You know, you do your research from LinkedIn, but
the landscape. Set up your alerts, all your alerts, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Get a sense in the first week. But like, I mean, is recruiters a bigger thing than in you? It's a real necessity. Like, link with some really good recruiters, so you get up to speed quickly. Okay.
Yeah, and again, similar to Paul, I'd say, you know, selfishly, I could say only reach out to me. It would be great, definitely do, but you know, reach out to all of the main recruitment agencies out here.
Well, it's a good point, because like in my experience, and the world's getting an awful lot smaller, like we're quite connected with Toronto as well, the UK, etc. Like, I think recruiters who are in the market a little while and they understand Irish chartered accountants and the whole journey of an Irish chartered accountant and the life cycle, if you like, it's extremely invaluable. Like, the insight as a recruiter, placing someone when you understand that journey is valuable. So they're probably what ACAs should be looking for when they go to any new market, I suppose. Okay, what am I forgetting to ask you, Jeff?
So just on, there is very varying cultures within companies out here. So you can get the best of the best in terms of benefits and, you know, office location and everything like that. On the flip side, you can get, you know, we're going to work you 15 hours a day, Monday to Sunday, and you don't know that until you start with them, because no company will ever say we have a terrible culture.
I've seen a few FCAs that have experienced that, actually.
Yeah, I have good friends out here that, you know, I didn't know before they got their first job, and they left within 2 weeks because it was a dark office, no windows, you know. So the beauty of going through a recruiter is, especially, you know, we have 3 Irish recruiters in Alchemy. We know the companies, the cultures, the people who will value the ACAs. There are smaller companies that will use you're an Irish qualified chartered accountant, audit background, as put you as like the face of the business, give you a head of finance title, and not pay you very well. But suddenly you're signing off on things you shouldn't be. You know, there's a little bit of that still out here. So you need to be very cautious. Really, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. If you're coming in as an audit senior or 3.5 years experience and someone's dangling a head of finance title in front of you, just be a bit cautious. That's all I'd say. So when you go through a recruiter, you do get that peace of mind. We've met the people in the company. We know the culture. We know the office. We know their team, everything. We can vouch a little bit for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I suppose, again, it's going to be quite different in terms of the whole chain of the process, the CV, the interview preparation, the interview process, right down to offer management and everything in very different jurisdictions. Like, you're obviously very aware of that whole step-by-step piece. Like, is it vastly different to an Ireland or a Sydney or Toronto?
With the offer is the UAE is the only country I know that your offer comes in your monthly, how much you'll be earning monthly, rather than if you're in Ireland and people say I'm on 60,000 euro a year or 70 or whatever it is. Out here, it's you get 20,000 dirham per month. And the thing people overlook a lot of the time, and I say to them, is look at what you're earning annually, like you would in Ireland, because that monthly offer doesn't include, they're paying for your medical. They're usually paying for an annual flight home. You do get a reasonable bonus on top of that. You will get another portion paid into what they call end of service benefit, which they'll pay roughly 6% of your annual salary into an account that when you leave, you get that as a lump sum. So if you stay 3 or 4 years, you get a nice payout at the end of it. So your total package is always more than that figure that they put on your contract monthly. And people look at that monthly and they say, well, that's a bit low. Well, actually, it's not. If you look at your annual. The other thing that a lot of people forget that I can't stress it enough for people looking to move out here. You need to get your documents attested. So in order to get your visa, you need to get your latest certificate, which is normally the ACA certificate, stamped by the Department of Foreign Affairs, the UAE Embassy in Ireland, and then the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in the UAE. Until you have that process done, you can't get your visa completed. And that a lot of people get an offer, they sign it, they go to, start the job. They say, please send us your attested document. That can take 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Much harder when you're in the UAE than when you're back home. So 3 or 4 weeks before you plan to fly out, get all that done and dusted because you'll need it.
That's really good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, for just a quick question, because it has come up a few times when I've been chatting to newly quals about potentially moving to Dubai. There is I don't know if it's a misconception or if it's a concern around the tax when returning home. Is there a time frame you have to stay and that you don't have to pay back tax or something like that? Because that's kind of what comes up every now and again with the newly quals.
There's a couple of tricks that I need to look into a little bit more before actually moving back. But I think basically, no, you don't have to pay any tax on revenue earned out here once you come back. There's certain ways of moving it at certain times and things, which again, I'm no expert in right now. I will be probably in the next 5 or 10 years, but no, as long as you have your income earned out here, it's all good. I think there's certain things with starting pension or starting a long-term savings that when you put the money in here, you need to withdraw it, wait a few months, and then put it back in when you move home. There are ways around it. Don't know should I be saying all this, but but no, in essence, anything you earn out here, you're fine.
Okay, thank you.
And probably nearly finally, I'd say, Jeff, like we know what the social life is like in Sydney. Like for an Irish person going over to Dubai, with the glamorous perception and everything, but it's a really enjoyable environment. Or like, just comment on the whole social side of thing. Like, you're going to work hard, play hard, I guess, out there.
Yeah, it's again like everything in Dubai. You can have both extremes. Like our favorite place in Dubai is a place called Fibber McGee's. Fits about 60 people. Trad music, great pint of Guinness, and other
is it
people
similar
will,
to Fibber McGee's in Dublin?
very similar. Owned same crowd. Yeah,
Oh, really?
same crowd.
Gas.
Yeah, so they call it Dubai's best kept secret.
Right.
It's unbelievable. But again, you talk to people who go up to the 75th floor and do beach clubs where they're spending however much. So you can
Yeah.
have different extremes. All I can say is there's a huge community of people out here, teachers,
Yeah.
more than you can imagine. There's the world's biggest Irish bar out here. There
Wow.
is plenty of people. There's Gaelic football teams, there's Irish soccer teams, there's hurling. There's a massive social Irish community. Same as Paul said, that you can't go to a mall without seeing a Kerry jersey, that sort of way.
Can't go anywhere in the world without seeing a Kerry jersey.
or a Mayo jersey or whatever it is. Yeah. But no,
Yeah.
there's endless amounts of people out here. It's completely up to you. And a night out in Dubai for me will cost me less than a night in Ireland.
Very good. That's an insight now, because that
Yeah.
would make exception for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stephen.
Because the majority of places out here is you do deals. So it's 3 hours of all you can eat, all you can drink, €50, €60, 70, 110, 120. You can go whatever extreme you want, but you can go somewhere for €50 and get 3 hours of Guinness and food. Which yeah, I learned the hard way back in Ireland isn't the case anymore, unfortunately.
Very good.
No, thank you.
Sorry, Stephen.
No, I'm just saying thank you that it's an inside thing people don't get to see, because as I said, it is more what we see is sometimes tailored more towards the extreme rather than kind of the day to day.
But it's funny because I've had family come out here and we'd go for a lunch, we'd go for a dinner, and we'd pay, and they'd just say, "Let us know how much to Revolut," and we get a 3-course meal with a drink or whatever, €35, €40, and you're sitting, on the 35th floor looking at the Burj Khalifa, and they're
Cool.
saying, "No, you have to," but it's go between 1 and 3, go between 5 and 8. You know what I mean? You pick your
Yeah.
times, you learn your tricks, and you go then. Because if you go in the evening to that same place, you get a main course for €100. So you
And you
learn
get
the
the sun
tricks.
beaming in through the window as well all day long.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question, Jeff, and we let you go. Just because I think Paul mentioned around committees and that whole link internationally with the Institute, the Irish Institute. Is there stuff going on like that newly quals, FCAs can link in with in terms of the Institute in Dubai?
Yeah, so it's myself and Louise O'Donnell who are a big part of the UAE, the Dubai Chartered Accountants Ireland network out here. So if you, I suppose, connect with me on LinkedIn, email, send me a message, whatever it is, we will give you all the details of events that come up. Again, we do the President's Dinner. It's in April this year. Brilliant turnout. As Paul said, you have people here for 40 years, as well as people here for 40 days that come along and network. There's also the Irish Business Network, which is probably a more frequent event planner, that it's not just chartered accountants, it's everyone from all sorts of business. But that's great, again, for networking, learning people's industries. The Irish look after each other, every part of the world you go to. So they're the main two areas, or the main two committees, I suppose, that I would recommend joining. Usually the rule of thumb when you come out here, you've no job, don't say no to anything. Anyone asks you to go for a coffee, go to an event, go to an expo, get out there, you're guaranteed. Whether it's Irish or not, everyone has come here with the same experience, that they're in a new country. There's 90% expats here. So everyone is open to helping people that are newly here because they were there themselves at one point. So go speak to people, go to events. At Alchemy, we host events for people who've come over new, fresh. But yeah, get in touch with me. I won't say Louise, she'll kill me if I tell people to start pinging her on email and LinkedIn, but get in touch with me and I'll get us, connected to the Chartered Accountants Ireland Dubai network.
Yeah, well, look, that's absolutely fantastic information, and similarly, thanks again to yourself, Jeff, for jumping on the call. And I think we've made the world a smaller place this morning or this afternoon there. No doubt we'll be talking again, and no doubt there'll be plenty of ACAs coming your way looking to pick your brains and connect and chat. So thanks again from Stephen and myself and Gillian Duffy, who runs the whole connectivity internationally in Chartered Accountants Ireland here as well. We'll chop this up and edit it and get it out to the members, because I think it's really useful information. You'll definitely see a few more members heading your way, I'd say. So look, thanks again.
Yeah, anyone send them. It's the nicest placement we can have is newly qualified Irish.
Yeah, no, I get that. Actually, no, I completely understand that. Super. Well, look, we'll talk again. And thanks to yourself and Paul, and stay in touch.
Brilliant.
Thanks,
Thank
you.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.